Hello, Todd Lewis here from Mainline Dyno. This quick video is going to be showing you how to use the data logging feature and viewing data logs on the new CCS system. So from the main screen here, you'll notice there's a data logging tab. If I click on that, once again, I have mentioned before, we've got 5 data logging tabs up the top of the screen here, which I can just click them through. There are some defaults, things I've been mucking around with. So basically, if you choose one screen, you'll notice that there's the ability to have 1 to 4 actual plots visible. So if I just choose, I'll put that back to 3. So at the moment, basically what's happening is there is just data passing through this screen continuously. Nothing's changing, so it looks like there's nothing there. There's a bit of torque float coming through there. So, but if I wanted to review a log I've done, I just simply pause the logger. And there's 2 buttons up the top here, which is read log from file and save to log. So if I want to retrieve a log, I just click read log from file. Goes to basically your computer, and you can go and find, look, wherever you happen to have some logs actually captured. So I've got a few in a folder here. I think if I just go into this one here, I've had a folder here with a test called ramp testing. I open it up. So open it up, just defaults to this, and at the moment that's just showing you the total of the log that's in there. So those who are familiar with looking at an overall of a log before, you'll notice here we've got 6 spikes, which it is basically representing engine RPM, for example. So in this bottom screen at the moment, I happen to have 3 different RPM sources shown. I've got the engine speed derived, which is a straight mathematical number based off the actual RPM of 3.9 ratio on this particular car under test. There's the engine speed ECU, which in this particular instance is actually coming through from the broadcast GM data. And I also happen to have a TAC, the mainline TAC secondary pickup connected to the car at the same time. So if I click here, I'm just scrolling up and down on a scroll wheel on a mouse, for example, so it's nice and easy. So I can zoom in here. So there's a few things you can basically see here. This was during a linear ramp test, so you can see here the test is nice and linear the whole way through. I'm seeing, look, minimal data difference between the 3 completely different RPM sources here on the screen. So if I zoom out, you can see the total of the time span I chose to do the testing for, and actually then pause it and save it. So if I scroll in here to our engine RPM, so as far as what you can do on the logger here is concerned, you've got the little settings gear you can click on. So at the moment it's just auto scaling to channel 1. So if I change it over to channel 2, it effectively won't change anything because it's the same data. Alternatively, you can override these settings. If I was just to make it 0 and 7,000 and turn off that, it'll no longer auto scale. So now we've just got a straight fixed 0 to 7,000 RPM scale. So you can change the auto scaling on and off at your will, depending on what you're trying to look at. So if I move through some other screens here, well, basically you can see here we're still looking at engine RPM in this next window up here. If I click the little gear icon, you know, so I've got engine oil pressure from the ECU, engine oil temperature from the ECU, and engine coolant temperature from the ECU coming in. So I can muck around and move some of the scaling around. So you can see here, I've got oil temperature up here at 109, oil pressure about 58 psi, engine coolant temp 99 during these tests. So if I want to scroll back through the entire time, we'll see how consistent or not. So you can see here at the beginning of my testing, all the coolant temp was around 90, and then I slowly got up to, what have we got up to here, about 103 in that particular testing there. It's not crazy. This car can see 108ish doing some testing. If I do some bit more harder testing, so we can see it here. Once again, oil pressure peaks up to about 50 psi there, and the oil temperature up 114. I regularly see over 120. Once again, we do lots of testing on that car, so that's all continuously logged. Other data logging, if I click data logging 1, so this is basically once again, I've set it up to show power and torque. So we're scrolling in, we've got power up here, which is the blue trace, horsepower, we've got torque. Once again, we've got TACO engine speed, so you can engine RPM reference for you, so I can go right to the top of the graph there. So basically the ramp screen will just show you sort of towards the end of that cursor, but the logger actually picks up what happens after the event. It does. So we see here, that's our engine RPM. This is also showing the ignition angle, or OBD2 ignition time, and that effectively is through the test. So this car's just a normally aspirated LS 6 litre base thing here, so that's what's in that particular car. So we can see here, so once again, these can be changed. Whatever you want to put in these graphs, you can. Data logging 2, once again, I've just got an example of 3 engine sources. I happen to have them air fuel ratio 1 and 2 here shown as well. Now the reason why they're identical, because it's two sensors in the same pipe. It's just how we test that particular setup on the dyno. Here we've got like a pipe that's got provision for 2 sensors, so we just put them in the same pipe for testing purposes. So we know on the dyno leads here the AFR is actually being tested. There is an AFR target channel that can be set up by the user, which under a tables option. I'll see if that's actually here, function tables there. So there's like a AFR target you can set up, which defines that line on the screen there for you. Now I've also got inlet manifold pressures. They weren't actually connected because it's a bit of a problem or difficult to connect up to a standard manifold on a 6 litre GM thing, so they're just sitting there not actually connected to the car. The bar is coming from the ECU on this particular instance. So once again, we can scroll right back through the entire 6 runs and see what was actually happening. So it's handy. So obviously if we're looking at engine RPM, we can get a good reference at any given point in time to see what our RPM and our air fuel ratios are. Logging 3, same sort of deal. This is just showing you the engine speed derived targets. This sort of shows you the control of the dyno. It's quite nice and linear here on this particular test. So 6,000 RPM up there we're getting up to. That's the engine speed target, which is a mathematical number based off your vehicle details you happen to put in. Rotational speed target is the axle RPM as well. And here this is a straight little target there that's showing you the target error above and below what the dyno is actually doing at any particular point in time. So obviously nothing to worry about there. Several RPM difference or nothing off the actual target. Data logging 4, I've just got it here. Once again, this is showing engine RPM. Default thing here, this is basically showing you our acceleration of the vehicle during the test. While it's a linear test, the dyno is still continuously logging and showing the acceleration of what's actually happening to the vehicle under the test. So the ramp rate I've chose, which is 470 engine RPM per second, it's around about 120 RPM per second of the axle. So you can see here the sort of average of that line there is around about 120, but that just sort of shows you there it's got the target versus what it does in real life. So these are all some of the inbuilt channels that are in the system at any point in time. If I have an ISCA, I could just come over here to the filter thing and just type in air fuel ratio. So any air fuel ratio, anything with the word air in it will just be visible over here in the air temperature ECU. I can see that as well at the same time. So you can still, even though I'm only looking at these particular channels, I can access any particular details at that particular point in time. If I put in angle, I got ignition timing angle comes up there. So as I move across the cursor. Now, additionally to when you're using the data logger, there is what's called the data grid. So you can see here, if I had 2 screens open, when I'm moving my cursor through this box over here, the data logger would actually would be showing the data in that in the data grid as well. So I can so this, once again, I meant this is totally configurable by the user. You can display what you want. Change your screen completely. If I want to drop this back down to just to be one graph on its own, you can do that. So you can completely set this up as you want it. So But to maximize it out, which would be a bit crowded, but if just say in the case of this particular dyno, it actually did have it, but they weren't connected. If I go to data logging 5 and I'll add a third window and I'll click on the gear. Now this dyno did actually happen to have an 8-channel EGT module on it. So if I just type in EGT cylinder 1, EGT cylinder 2, EGT cylinder 3, EGT cylinder 4, oh, 5. Now I'm just going through the process here of loading them in, but you can actually save workspaces in this system. So once you've done this particular setup, you can actually save this as what's called a workspace, so you won't have to go through this process again. So now I won't auto scale this because I know there was actually no data recorded, but so this dyno happened to have, I used like an 8-channel Haltech EGT module, so when they're not connected to anything, they sit there at 1050 degrees Celsius. So you can see here, if it was a valid test where you're looking at EGTs per cylinder, then it's obviously a great way of actually looking at that particular data that'll all be logged and shown here at one particular point in time. So, and just to sort of show you what you can do there, as far as if I want to save this, so I can go File, Export Workspace, and then I can save this as a I'll just call it, say, 2-wheel drive and then EGT, and that will be, it's not only this screen here, but it'll save the entire workspace through the program as far as what I've got any other setting in the dyno program is concerned. So I can actually chop and change between different workspaces if I'm looking at different particular data from different sorts of data acquisition I've got connected from car to car. So quite a powerful function, the data logging screen. So that's just an example of getting some pretty basic data just from the dyno, and like I said, I had the GM broadcast data coming across. So there's lots and lots of information available to the user in this program, and the data log function is really fantastic for looking at essentially 10 minutes worth of data as you've been using the dyno. So each one of these data logs is about 40 meg in size, so you can save them. Now the dyno doesn't do this automatically. If you want to stop and save data, that's the only time that's a saved actual data run, so or saved data log, so that's in here. So that's the data logger. Hope you like it. I'll see you on the next video.